Bear with me, everyone. Whether you want Britain to leave the EU or not, let's consider if Brexit is inevitable. Yes, the Brexit talks have begun, but since June's shock election result, it's a question some people are asking.
I'm beginning to think that, Brexit may never happen.
Of course the door remains open, always open until the Brexit negotiations come to an end.
It's the same with the German finance minister. He said if they wanted to change the decision, of course they would find open doors. And Nigel Farage is worried.
Well, I have to say that the mood music since the general election has been alarming.
All of which has left quite a few people asking, is this definitely on? In some cases, this may be the wishful thinking of those who want to remain, but there are also Brexit supporters who worry that the referendum result will not be seen through. Theresa May said the snap election was called to deliver stability. Well, that didn't happen. And the political volatility that's followed has fueled interest in our question. So I'm going to break this down into the law, the politics, and the practicalities. These three will make or break Brexit. First, the law. As you know, in a referendum in 2016, the UK voted to leave. This wasn't legally binding, though, because Parliament is sovereign in the UK. That's why, earlier this year, Parliament gave its support.
The ayes have it! The ayes have it!
To undo that, another parliamentary vote would be necessary, but no party suggesting that. From the EU side of things, the UK had to trigger Article 50 of the Lisbon Treaty. It's done that, so the process of exiting has begun. The law matters in the Brexit process, but it doesn't matter as much as politics. British politics has been tumble-dried by Brexit. The parties have been pulled this way and that and have emerged tangled up, disorientated, hot and bothered. Brexit, Trump and Macron have taught us that predicting politics is a precarious undertaking, so who knows what comes next. But there are two major things which could, in theory, stop Brexit. Another general election is one. As all parties say they respect the result of the referendum, Brexit looks highly likely whatever the result. Even the Greens and the Liberal Democrats, two parties that want to stay in the EU, are both careful to stress their respect for last year's vote. Vince Cable, who's expected to be the next Lib Dem leader, is not saying that Brexit shouldn't happen, just that it might not happen. These two parties also advocate our next scenario, a second referendum on the terms of the Brexit deal. But even in the very unlikely event that one was called, of course, we don't know which way that would go. So technically, it is possible that the politics of Brexit could change and that it could be stopped, and that the EU shows every sign of being open to that, but I won't be putting any money on that outcome. Lastly, there's the timescale. Many doubt that all of this can be done in the 2-year period set by the EU. Concern about timescale exists because there are so many elements of this relationship that need untangling and resetting. These are just some of the areas that have to be resolved. Even the Brexit Secretary, David Davis, has accepted that some transitional arrangements may be needed. Now, Brexiteers argue this is a surmountable challenge, but it is a question mark against the process, and the odds being offered at British bookmakers for a delayed exit are reasonably high. There's another factor emerging too. The Chancellor, Philip Hammond, said this recently.
When the British people voted last June, they did not vote to become poorer or less secure.
The complexity of Brexit is such that there are those who argue that the economic implications for Britain are ominous if it makes a clean break from the EU. So to allay these concerns, Brexit could roll out over a number of years to lessen those risks that could come with a sudden departure. And of course, the longer we wait for this all to complete, the more time there is for the politics to change. That's the law, the politics, and the practicalities. Technically speaking, Brexit isn't inevitable, but it's extremely likely to happen.